Well, let's continue this discussion with 2016 presidential candidate, former Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal. Governor, good to have you with us today. Now, these polls, CNN polls, Governor, devastating for President Biden, looking very unlikely that he's going to be the Democratic nominee. What say you?
Well, Todd, first of all, always great to talk to you again. Thank you for having me on your show. Look, you know what's bad, as you said, you know what's bad when even CNN is saying that President Trump's running ahead of President Biden. How could this be? The mainstream media, the Democrats have been telling us that Bidenomics is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's the best economy in our lifetimes. But, you know, it reminds me of that old saying, who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe them? You're going to believe your lying eyes. And the reality is, you look at what's really happening in the economy. Just reports now that the deficit's going to double to $2 trillion. Unprecedented level of borrowing that you don't see in peacetime. You normally see that during world wars, but not during what's supposed to be a good economy. You're seeing record high interest rates, rapidly increasing interest rates that have been the highest they've been in several years. You see record high delinquencies on credit card debts, on other types of borrowing. You know that young people that are trying to buy a home or rent an apartment, it's getting more and more expensive to afford housing. And so you hear the mainstream media, you hear the president, you hear the Democrats telling you this is a great economy, Biden deserves another 4 years. But the American people can see in their pocketbook that inflation is a little bit better, but it hasn't gotten back to normal. And they see that it's harder and harder to pay off their loans. It's harder and harder to afford housing. So I think that's why his numbers are so low. And I think people are remembering, remember what Ronald Reagan asked, are you really better off than you were 4 years ago? I think they're remembering the boom times under President Trump before COVID. And they're saying, boy, we'd like that economy back if we could get that.
Or remember Bill Clinton, it's the economy, stupid. I mean, this is where we're heading here, Governor. Real quick, I'm curious, though, about the nominee. If it's not going to be Biden, I'm not sure they're going to be able to go with Gavin Newsom. You've got a party that is now to the far left of Nancy Pelosi, and I think they're going to want an identity politics ticket.
Oh, look, I think you're exactly right. I think that they spent so much time talking about nothing but race or gender. I do think President Biden is the most likely nominee. I think that they'd have a very hard time skipping over their vice president. And I think actually Kamala Harris may be Joe Biden's best friend right now. Because he did such a bad job picking a vice president, it makes it harder for Democratic Party leaders to say to him, step aside, let your vice president run, because they don't want her on top of the ticket. And so in a way, he's actually being rewarded for making a bad choice for his vice president. And by the way, Todd, we've talked a lot. It's not just about the economy. You look at what's going on the southern border. You look at the illegal immigrants coming into our country. You look at the crime in cities like San Francisco, what's happening in Chicago. You see the nightly news about the homicide rates going up, about the thefts, people just brazenly walking out of stores in California, people no longer chasing after them. You see what's happening in our kids' schools. Now we're getting reports that some of these schools may be going back to mask mandates. You see these fights all over the country where educators want to teach our kids these radical ideas about gender and then don't want to tell the parents. They don't want to involve the parents in their own children's education. So, yes, it's the economy, but it's not just the economy, I think, that's weighing down Biden's numbers.
I want to get your take on Mike Pence taking a dig at President Trump. And I think it really does highlight the divide within the Republican Party. Let's take a listen to this.
I ask my fellow Republicans this. In the days to come, will we be the party of conservatism? Or will we follow the siren song of populism? Should the new populism of the right seize and guide our party? The Republican Party we've long known will cease to exist. And the fate of American freedom would be in doubt. The truth is, Donald Trump, along with his imitators, often sound like an echo of the progressives they seek to replace.
All right, seriously here, Pence is basically saying Trump is not a conservative. Does he have a point here, Governor?
So I wrote an op-ed about this in Newsweek last week about the future of the Republican Party and what happens whenever we are after Trump. And what I say is Trumpism will live even longer than Trump is a candidate or a president or in office. What I mean by that is there are some in the Republican Party They want to go back in time before Trump, erase the last several years and go back to the old policies. The reason Trump, however, and I argue that's not going to happen. The reason that Trump was so popular, the reason that he had so much momentum, and he still has such strong support in the Republican Party, is that the establishment failed. You know, big business captured both parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. I would argue that Trump represented a conservative populism. So it's not a choice between conservatism and populism. It's a fusion, a conservative populism. Three key policy areas where I don't think there's any going back. You know, the old Republican Party wanted to do these one-sided free trade deals that devastated our middle class, devastated our manufacturing capacity, exporting jobs to China. Now, even Democrats are beginning to admit that the elites in both parties were wrong about China, and Trump was the first to forcefully call that out. Secondly, I don't think we're going back to the days the old Republican Party had a much more relaxed view about illegal immigration, about amnesty, about letting millions of people come across our border. That was one of Trump's key, and it continues to be one of his key issues. I don't think the party is going back. Big business may want that because they want to lower wages and lower benefits. It's not good for American workers. And the third is the old Republican Party was much more of an interventionist party where we were sending troops overseas into conflicts that weren't in our national interests, that weren't part of our national security. I don't see ourselves going back to that. We won't be an isolationist party, but we're going to be much more careful about when we actually deploy American troops. So I don't think there's any going back to the pre-Trump party. Even though big business may want that, there's folks in the Senate that may want that. That's just not going to happen.
All right, and Governor, I've got about 60 seconds here, but another big issue is abortion, and that issue is being debated even within the Republican Party. But Mexico's Supreme Court just threw out all federal criminal penalties for abortion, and we're starting to see this trend really across Latin America as countries are moving to decriminalize abortion. Governor, do you expect that to be a big issue here in this country in 2024?
Oh, I do. And look, I disagree. There are some Republican strategists that tell Republican candidates, don't talk about abortion, play down your pro-life views. I think that's a mistake. I'm Christian. I'm pro-life. You know, Ronald Reagan famously talked about the three-legged stool that's the Republican Party. You know, fiscal conservatism, strong military, as well as our traditional family values. I think it'd be a mistake to ignore any one of those three legs of that stool. And so I hope that pro-life activists in Mexico can take some inspiration from what happened in America. We in our country, we saw a progressive court decades ago do the same thing, make abortion the law of the land here in our country through decades of hard work, of prayers, of grassroots organizing, of intense campaigning. We were able to overcome that, and now you're seeing states enact pro-life laws across the country. And so there is hope for the pro-life activists in Mexico. It's still a very religious country, and there's still many folks down there disappointed in their court's ruling. Here in 24, I think it'd be a mistake for any Republican to run away from our party's traditional family values. Very, very important. Whether it's pro-life, religious liberty, empowering parents over their children's education, it's a very important part of what sets us apart from the Democratic Party.
All right, real quick, 30 seconds here, Governor. Where have you been? You want to get back out on the campaign trail? You want to jump back into politics?
Look, you never say never, but for right now, we're raising 3 young kids at home. I'm a big believer in term limits. I'm still involved in policy. I chair something called the Center for Healthy America at the America First Policy Institute, so I still get involved in policy debates. Once the kids are raised, maybe I'll come back and spend even more time, but I'm still involved in policy. You can't leave it. It's too important for our country.
All right, never say never. Governor Bobby Jindal, good to see you, Governor.